My name is Julia Warner, and I will be talking about the influence that our drug taking culture has on substance initiation, treatment, and recovery. And there are 3 points that I would specifically like to make. The first point is that our drug taking culture is a one way ticket to substance abuse, use, and addiction. Once you're in, stigma prevents you from getting out. Once you're out, stigma in our drug taking culture makes it difficult for you to stay out. I want to start off by talking about Audrey Begun's books, Theories and Biological Basis of Substance Misuse. She emphasizes the influence on one's environment on all aspects of drug use. She describes the impact on parental and peer use, as well as the accessibility of substances in one's environment, as well as social norms. Our drug taking culture can cultivate this environment that actively normalizes drug use as a fast acting intervention in a fast paced society and stigmatizes, but we will get to that later. Begun gives a perfect example of this actually. Begun's example is an individual's diet is dependent upon the accessibility of food within the community. So, thus, the nutritional value would be influenced by living in a food desert, right? Or somewhere where an abundance of easily accessible food that is nutritionally good for you or bad for you is present. Either way, your diet and nutritional intake is totally dependent on what's around you. That being said, accessibility has a huge influence on the initiation of drugs, and this can be demonstrated by a U.S. national survey of middle schoolers and high schoolers in 8th, 10th, and 12th grade when asked how accessible they believe different substances are to them. As you can see from the chart that Begun gives us in her book, there is a growing belief that these substances are easily accessible. Specifically in 12th grade, seniors in high school, 32.5% of them believe that narcotics were easily accessible to them. This data can be particularly frightening considering the fact that because adolescents are undergoing changes in their brain, they are vulnerable to exposure to substances, and the result can have lasting effects, including substance abuse disorders later on in life. Additionally, it doesn't help that our culture normalizes drinking in these adolescent years and throughout college, seen as though these are your party years or drinking years. Once you're in, stigma prevents you from getting out. Yes, you heard me right. A socially constructed weapon that holds one hostage from receiving help. Begun says in her book, quote, stigma affects a person's willingness to engage in treatment, which they can translate into further marginalization, blame, and increased barriers to seeking help for substance misuse and related problems. Drug-taking interventions are normalized and seen as a commonly used method to solve problems in our everyday life. They're everywhere around us. For example, we have Advil, we have weight loss pills, allergy medication, energy supplements, and antibiotics, just in case. And if someone is sick, coughing, fever, nausea, we see these interventions as being okay. And I hate to say this, but a person with a substance use disorder is sick. And when they do withdraw, they do need that medication to help them, sometimes even survive. Perhaps it is our problem. We don't view these individuals as sick, rather criminal and the product of their own actions and choices. An example is obesity. In a world filled with billboards begging you to eat their cheap and fast food, we continue to stigmatize overweight individuals. The paradox is that individuals are influenced by the very cultural practices that are normalized. However, once you do recover, stigma in our drug-taking culture makes it hard to stay out. As an example, I want to make a point of our beliefs related to harm reduction interventions, specifically medication-assisted treatment. Trigger warning, many individuals find this method extremely controversial, using drugs to fix our problems. Weird, right? I want to quickly go over a few points from Robinson and Ananoff's article, The Mixed Message Behind MAT for Substance Use Disorders, that demonstrates how stigma can prevent individuals from receiving this type of treatment. Firstly, the term medication-assisted treatment could be a contributing factor to the controversial views on the intervention. However, this term is in fact trying to imply that medication is only a part of the intervention. It's secondary. It is used in combination with other treatments such as peer support groups and psychosocial interventions. This should demonstrate how we are perfectly fine with medicinal treatments in our daily lives, but when used for people with substance use disorder, it is in fact frowned upon. Robinson and Adenoff point out the lack of support in the recovering community that contributes to the reluctancy of individuals that have to pursue this effective treatment as they are replacing one drug with another. This can prevent individuals from utilizing medication assisted treatment and stigmatize those who do use it. I've seen this before myself, where clients do not feel as though they are truly in recovery. By illegitimating individuals' recovery, this can prevent the empowerment and self efficacy that they truly need to prevent from relapse. And a lot of this, I think, comes from the abstinence only theory that continues to prevent these interventions from being utilized. This is just one of the many ways in which stigma creates barriers to recovery and maintenance, but I'd like to shine a light on how difficult it is for an individual to recover in our drug taking culture by just naming off a few aspects of our environment that creates triggers, relapse, or discouragement. Alcohol sales. They're cheap, accessible, and oftentimes promoted to the youth. Liquor agencies and grocery stores. I've seen this in many clients who run into this problem when they are trying to simply go grocery shopping. You might say advise them to go to other grocery stores, but the reality is that most of them have them, and ones without them might not be in a feasible location. Social arenas are predominantly bars, and even restaurants are blatantly promoting alcohol. We have so many alcohol based advertisement based around big events like the Super Bowl that's so important in our country, as well as holidays that just emphasize alcohol and drinking as the main point basically of that holiday. I just wanted to wrap it up with a little bit of a self disclosure, and yes, that is me, the youngest with an afro. As someone who's seen addiction front row, I've always viewed it as an illness, not a choice, and certainly not criminal. This is because I knew the individual inside and out, so I saw the disease control her life and ending it as well. Additionally, I've seen chronic illness, such as cancer, front row, after the life that was taken from me by addiction. Thus, the similarities made it all too familiar, and comparing the two was difficult to avoid. From this point on, following my education and experience with the subject, I refuse to look at addiction as anything else other than an illness. So, I challenge you to do the same. Educate yourself and others on the biological, psychological, neurological, and environmental factors on addiction to destigmatize addiction and treat it like an illness. By doing this, we could promote a culture that fosters opportunities for prevention, treatment, and recovery. Thank you.